September 5th, 2013. This is the Hermetic Hour. I'm your host, Poke Runyon, and tonight we present a discussion on the 27th path of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, leading from the Sphere of Hod to the Sphere of Netzach. Now, this is the lowest of three cross members, uniting opposite pillars on the tree. Gareth Knight considers it, quote, the main girder of the personality. It connects the sphere of the intellect with the sphere of natural forces. So, sparks are bound to fly. It's right on the lightning. Right on the lightning flash, by the way. The path is attributed to the planet Mars and the tarot trump, the Blasted Tower. Now, this prompted Gareth Knight to relate the path to the mysterious alchemical allegory, the chemical wedding of Christian Rosencreutz, which he summarizes in his practical guide to Kabbalistic symbolism. So, as we said, tune in and we will walk the path to the House of God, which is another name for the tarot trump called the Blasted Tower. Now, this is, of course, a boat working, and what I mean by a boat working, I'll explain for those of you who are just tuning in perhaps for the first time, or maybe you haven't quite followed all of our work on the paths. Rather than, we walk these paths in our hypnotic reveries, and the tour guide, of course, describes the attention points as you come to them, and each one of these attention points, of course, has a particular message just for you, and that's the process of the path working works that way, and you come back with very deep knowledge relating to the symbolism of the path. But once we get up the tree and go up past the first three spheres, we get into the problem of how do we get ourselves to those spheres? And we could I suppose, just say the word there and then walk the next path, but that's not really an elegant solution. And so we've developed a magical boat, which looks like an ibis with its wings folded, and we put this boat up on the altar, and we make ourselves very, very small. Our spirit body is very small, and the boat very large, and make the boat about 30 feet long, and has a nice roomy cockpit. And we all get in the boat, and the boat spreads its wings, and we fly off through this old door, and we go up to the sphere that we've already explored, and we land there at the base of the path, the new path, and then we walk the path. And then we can walk the path up to the next sphere and experience that. And then we can either, after we've experienced that, we can either walk back the path, or we can have the boat meet us there and take us home. So the boat, the magical boat, or what we call Two Swords boat, is a very, very nice magical tool that we use in these paths the higher we get up the tree. Now, we've already done, and last week we did the 28th path. That was from Yesod up to Netzach. And you recall that we disagreed with Gareth Knight, both myself and Joe Carson. We both disagreed with Gareth Knight. He was, for some reason, he's not, Gareth Knight, Basil Wilby, I used to correspond with him. I think he's probably perhaps passed on by now, but I didn't really think Basil was a Thelemite, but he had gone ahead and somehow or other opted for Crowley's rather strange transposition of the star and the Emperor card, on which, quite frankly, does not fit. And Gareth and I went along with that, and this, we didn't agree with that. And both Joe and I explained the reasons why we did not agree with that one. And that's basically the star is attributed to Aquarius, and it was actually a communicative sort of a thing. It went up to Netzach, the sphere of natural forces. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start out, of course, from Hod, which is the lower sphere. It's over on the pillar of severity. That's the sphere of the intellect. That's the sphere that we attribute to the great library. And in our path working to Hod, we have the huge library where what is generally referred to as the Akashic records are all kept and whatever. And it's the sphere of the intellect. It's the sphere of rational thought and science and all of the sort of stuff that somehow comes from the subconscious up to the conscious and gets processed, you know. And it's rational and it's scientific and it's mercurial, very, very mercurial. And so, of course, the sphere is naturally attributed to Mercury. And fitting, Mercury is represented by Hermes and Hermes Trismegistus. Now, right across, following this 27th path, going against the lightning flash, by the way, because we're going up the tree, right across this path, on the other side, over in the Pillar of Mercy, is the sphere of nature, Netzach. And this, of course, is the sphere of the natural forces and the sphere of nature, nature in all of its forms, its esoteric forms, its physical forms, its divine purpose, if you will. And you might want to kind of think of it in terms of the anima mundi, the great goddess. In fact, what we have done and to typify, because the image of Netzach is traditionally a beautiful nude woman, and so we, of course, being the order of the Temple of Astarte, naturally we put Astarte over there in her own temple, and put her in a yoga asana, and she contains all of the psychic centers, which are the spheres, of course, in the Western system, and put all of those inside her. And so we have in Netzach a 50-foot tall, if you want to put a measurement on her, a 50-foot tall goddess sitting in a pool of living water, with all of the spheres inside her, translucent, and she represents the whole physical universe, and rightly so, because this is the realm of nature, and she takes the place of what we would call the anima mundi in that sense. So that's the sphere of Netzach, at least in the way we visualize it. And yet, at the same time, we have to understand that there's more to the sphere of Netzach than just personifying it as a great goddess. That's fine for devotional purposes and for mystical visions and all that. But for philosophical purposes, we have to understand that this sphere represents natural forces within us and outside of us and our relationship with natural forces, in a broad scale and even in a small scale, an individual scale. At this point, I'm not digressing at this point, but I do want to mention something that I think is important. The tree of life is very much concerned with the individual human being and the universe itself and the individual human being's relationship and harmony with the universe itself. And one thing that we lose sight of when in the glamour and and the paraphernalia and the power tripping and all that goes on in ceremonial magic, we lose sight sometimes of the overall fact that we're really practicing magic, not to get advantage over other people, or to get advantage in the business world, or to accomplish or to gain power over our lives. We're practicing magic to become godlike in the truest sense. We practice magic is a supreme, divine practice of what you might recall psychology. Magic is the ultimate psychotherapy. Our motto is know yourself, you are God. So we have to look at this tree as a schematic of the microcosm within ourselves, relating to the macrocosm of the universe, and understand that the Hermetic principle is that each individual human being is a detailed, exact miniature of the universe itself. And so when we talk about these paths and these spheres in relation to our emotions and our faults and our phobias and whatever our imbalances are in the elements and all that, be aware that that's the primary purpose of magic, is to make you, is to help you make yourself into something, well, we say more than human, and I know that has an egotistical sound to it. Well, yeah, magic is different than the Eastern approach. We don't believe in killing the mind. We believe in exalting the mind, and we believe in maintaining our individuality as long as possible, and make it so. The magician seeks to expand his individuality to include the universal human condition. He will agree with the Buddhist that all other beings, ultimately, all other human beings, are reflections of himself in his universe, because he is the center of the universe. But at the same time, he has compassion for them, and he has empathy with them, because he loves them as he loves himself. And this is what we like to think, those of us, the mystic Christians like to think, but this is what Jesus meant by when he said, love your brother as yourself. And this is what he meant, that you are your brother. And yet the mystery here, the wonderful mystery of magic, is that each one of us is an individual. And each one of us is our own. We are our own human being. We're not somebody else's. We're our own divine self. And our own divine self is the center of the magical universe. And this is what's meant by the great I am. It is also, if you want to give Moses some Kabbalistic credit, which I think we ought to do, Moses, was one where he asked God. He said, "Well, who shall I tell the children of Israel your name? What's your name? What do I tell them?" And God said, "Tell them I am that I am." Yeah, and of course, some people joke about that and say, "Well, that means God is Papa. I am what I am, and that's all that I am." But no. But this is tremendously profound. The great I am, and Ballard up in Mount Shasta, the great I am, and not that I'm trying to book for Ballard, but I mean, but that's it, the great I am. And as Frater Solomon said the other day, he said, unfortunately, when Christianity got institutionalized and became, after Paul and Constantine got through with Christianity, the great I am became the great you're not. Yeah. So, but this is what the tree of life is all about. Is the great I am. It's your great I am. It's your schematic, and it's also the schematic of the universe. Now, if you take this in-centric view, then you realize the tremendous power of this design and the usefulness of it. And so I want to make this clear, that so what we're dealing with when we talk about the paths and the spheres, we're dealing with how these forces and these motifs, symbols, how they relate to you and your psyche and your makeup and your personality. This is why Gareth Knight, as will be, was very, very, very much aware of this. And this is why I like, for the most part, the Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism. And I really recommend it. I say there's a few things about it I don't agree with. I think he puts Michael in Tippereth, and I don't agree with that. And of course he puts Switch the Emperor like Crowley. I don't agree with that, but for the most part, I don't think Gareth Knight for Hermetic Kabbalah. I don't think Gareth Knight's Practical Guide has been superseded yet by anything. There's nothing else like it that I know of. Now, so that said, this is why he is saying this lowest cross member uniting opposite pillars of the tree of life is the main girder of the personality, because this is the cross member between the road between the intellect and the rational thought and the rational behavior and the forces of nature within us, which are actually, in this sense, higher up the tree. Now, and so obviously there's going to be a conflict. Now, let's take a look at the roots of this conflict. And you know, of course, that the path is the path of Mars, which means obviously that there's going to be a conflict. We're going to approach this from a confrontational point of view. There has to be, and that's why the tower, the blasted tower, is attributed to this path. And before we get any further, let me relate this back to an earlier program we had. Remember, Professor Shoemaker and I were going on about science fiction that's influenced the esoteric and dealt with the esoteric, and we talked about A.E. Van Vogt and his World of Null A, and Korbitsky, General Somatics, and we mentioned that General Somatics and Korbitsky's work was very, very influential on L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. And the gist of that is this, that Aristotelian logic, and that Aristotelian logic is what you could kind of pin that on the sphere of thought in this instance. You could say, okay, this is the sphere of Aristotelian logic. This is the sphere where we say 1 3-ounce red apple equals every other 3-ounce red apple, and that's the way it is. Well, we know, but, oh, come on now. There's no such thing as one 3-ounce apple equaling every other 3-ounce apple, because they're all different in one way or another. But Aristotelian logic, for the sake of practicality and whatever, says no. They're all the same. Whereas over in Netzach, on the sphere of nature and the sphere of the natural forces, the sphere of the subconscious, they over there, they know that all the apples are different, and they're aware of it. So we're moving, in a sense, from an Aristotelian to a non-Aristotelian position. Now, quite frankly, this may not sound terribly important, but doggone it, Van Vogt and L. Ron Hubbard and Korzybski thought that this would change the whole world if we got people to actually move from Aristotelian logic to non-Aristotelian logic. This would be an earth-shaking transformation. I think about that, an earth-shaking, because people would open up their thinking to a great deal of vistas that and possibilities and compromises, if you will, and various solutions to problems that they have not been able to see. There are some problems that we have in this world that nobody seems to be able to solve, because we use this analogy that, well, they got to think outside their box. Well, this is what non-Aristotelian thinking, non-Aristotelian logic is thinking outside the box. So, as we go, and remember now we're going up. So we're going up from this intellect and this engineering sphere here in Hod. We're going up, advancing to the sphere of natural forces within us, natural forces of the universe. And we're leaving, in this sense, we're leaving the world of Aristotelian logic behind, and we're going to the sphere of non-Aristotelian logic. Now, so the symbol is, of course, the tarot card, which is the called the Blasted Tower. Now, I don't know how many of you got your tarot decks out and you're looking at the tower, but a couple of things about the Blasted Tower that we all know that it's a tower, has 3 windows, and has a certain special number of blocks that it's built out of, and then there's a special number of either yods or circles, which I'm not going to get into all the numerology based upon it, but it's all been, analyzed by various people. But essentially, it's a lightning bolt striking, there's a storm cloud, so a lightning bolt striking the top of the tower, and there's a crown up there on the top, and it's knocking the crown off the top, and a man and a woman are falling off the top of the tower. It's been struck by lightning. Now, the tower actually isn't hurt. Oh, I think maybe Waite's version, there's a couple of rocks, a couple of bricks up there are dislodged, but basically the Marseille, the original Marseille, the tower itself is not hurt. The top, the crown top is knocked off, and the 2 people are thrown down, but the tower itself is still standing, essentially. Now, that itself is significant. It means, and this is also called the House of God. Now, Gareth Knight, of course, naturally wants to hit all the bases on this, and so he deals with the symbolism of the Tower of Babel in the Bible. And you all recall that in the legend of the Tower of Babel, the Babylonians decided they were going to build a tower all the way up to heaven, and this was a kind of a very hubristic gesture. God felt insulted by this, and so he rather than let them complete it, he confounded everybody by changing their languages. And this was how according to this legend, how all the different languages of the earth came about, because nobody could understand everybody. So the few people who could understand each other got together and went off their separate ways. The tower never got built. Well, that's legend has some significance to it, but basically that is really a patriarchal Garden of Eden type symbolism that's meant there. Like, for instance, we should not try to reach heaven. We should not try to reach God. I don't think that's particularly valid. But one of the things that does arise from the Babel symbolism here is that the business of communication in this world has been separated by really by nationalism. And I'll give you an example of that, and which does relate to this Tower of Babel symbolism. Back about 200 years ago, right before at the beginning of this European nationalistic fervor, Latin was the language of scholars all over Europe and in the United States and in England. 250 years ago, if you wrote a scientific paper or you wrote a paper in the arts or anything like this, any kind of academic paper, you wrote it in Latin. And if you delivered that paper from the podium at a university or lyceum, you delivered it in Latin, and the students took notes in Latin, and Latin was the language of science and scholarship. It was virtually, at least in the Western world, it was the universal language of science and scholarship. Well, what caused that? Now, wouldn't that be wonderful today if we still had that? I mean, because, my gosh, you look at Europe, and there's all these little languages, and scientific papers are being published in all these little languages, and a lot of times work is being duplicated. People do work that other people can't share. It's and we're desperate to try to translate all this stuff. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we just had this one language for science and education and everything? And everybody, all the kids in school would learn it, like I did. Of course, I had 4 years of it. All I remember is Ubiega says, "Where's the fire?" But seriously, what happened to stop this? What happened to break this up so that Latin is no longer even, it's just a curiosity now. I mean, hardly anybody cares about it anymore. What happened was nationalism. And this was just like that Tower of Babel analogy. Nationalism. All of these little countries wanted to have, they all were so proud of their nationality. Little countries, some of these little countries in Europe are no bigger than the state of Delaware. But they all wanted to have their own language because they were fiercely nationalistic. And so Latin dropped by just all over Europe. It went out of favor, and they were doing scientific papers and teaching in universities in their own national language. And that was the end of Latin as the universal language of science and education. Now that is a very pertinent part of the tower analogy. So these forces of nationalism, and of course, the forces of nationalism finally, as you know, they finally resulted in World War I, one of the most horrible conflagrations we've in the history of mankind, and in many ways worse than World War II. But this was a result of this ferocious nationalism. So that relates to the tower symbolism. Another symbolism that we particularly like in this path that Basil Wilby doesn't mention is Scylla and Charybdis, the two mythological rocks. They were called the clashing rocks, and they're in Greek mythology. And you had to sail between them. And of course, unless you prayed to the right gods and you had the right gods on your side, the rocks would crush you as you tried to sail between them. Well, yeah, there is a situation, several situations in the world that are very much like Scylla and Charybdis. But the rocks themselves don't move. What happens is that you have a narrow channel. You have a narrow channel with a tremendous current running through it, and unless you know exactly how, you need a pilot to get you through this channel. Because if you don't, if you try to go down the middle of the channel, I don't care how powerful a motor you have or what kind of boat you have, you're gonna get wrecked, because even though the channel may be hundreds of feet wide, and you aim right down the center, the way the currents are going, you are going to get smashed. And so you need to have a pilot who knows the water, who can aim you right at one of these rocks. And he's going to aim you right at it and hold the wheel, and you're going to be terrified, because he's heading right straight toward the rock, but he knows that by doing this, the current, right before he hits that rock, the current's going to take him right through the middle of the channel, and you're all going to be safe. He knows it. You don't. And so I think Sulian Charybdis, and the idea of knowing what you're doing before you do it, is one of the lessons of this path, and taking the pilot on board to get you through that. Now, Basil Wilby also mentions in the course of this path, he mentions Valentine and Andrea's chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. And he likes this because, and he likens it to this path, because in the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz, there's a tower. And this is the Tower of Alchemy. And in this tower, you go up the tower and you go through the various stages of alchemy. And, oh gosh, I mean, this is decapitating the king and the queen, and incinerating the blue, painting the bird blue, and then burning the bird, and then reconstituting all these various things that go on in these chambers as you go up this tower, until finally you get to the top and you have achieved the summum bonum at the top of the tower. And so the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz is one of the great mystery works of the Western magic. And it was first published in 1616, and it was one of these mysterious Rosicrucian documents. Now, if there ever was a really functioning Rosicrucian fraternity, the 30 Years' War probably wiped it out. But in 1614, it began to kind of surface a little bit, and that was before the 30 Years' War, of course. And then in 1616, well, at first they published the Fama Fraternitatis. That was their manifesto. It said that the secret brotherhood was walking among you, and that they had the secrets of healing and the secrets of the Kabbalah and all of this. And then Valentine Andrea, who was pretty well established as the author of the Chemical Wedding, he published this rather lengthy, kind of in the form of a allegorical symbolic novel. And it's called The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz. And what it is, the legendary founder of Rosicrucianism, goes on this journey, and he goes to this strange land, the kingdom, and he has all these various experiences. This is very much, by the way, I'm going to say that this is on the model of an earlier work, which you might be familiar with. It became the model for the Ninth Gate, for the Club Dumas. The Hypno-Erotomantia, and the Hypno-Erotomantia was published in Italy about 100 years before that, and it was a very much longer symbolic allegory sort of thing, very, very much like the Chemical Wedding. But the Chemical Wedding has this tower, and now nobody has been able really, including Adam McLean and various people who tried to decipher this, to relate these they know that all of these different things that happen in the tower are stages of alchemy, but they're all mixed up, and they don't fit anybody's straight out model of the various stages of alchemy. Of course, you've got calcimation, sublimation, and all that, and transformation, and all these various stages. But nobody has quite figured out what model of alchemy this is supposed to represent. Quite frankly, it seems to me that Andrea purposefully mixed up the stages, and that all you really need to do is just realize that these different stages have been put in a different order, but they're all the stages of alchemy. Now, I'm going to read a summary Basil has in his practical guide here on the 27th path. He has a summary of the chemical wedding, which I think is informative, and I'll read that to you. It's not too long, and you'll get an idea of just how mysterious and alchemical this is. The story tells of the summoning of Christian Rosenkreutz to go on a quest on Easter Day, which lasts for 7 days, and his adventures are a summary of the initiation process. The first day, he is summoned to a strange marriage of a king and a queen. On the second day, he sets out and chooses one of the 3 ways. The hard, stony way of initiation is the one he chooses, and almost inadvertently from the broad, easy way of normal evolution and the fantastically difficult way endurable only to 1 in 1,000, presumably saintship. The third day he is tested, along with his other pilgrims, by being weighed in a balance, when all the unworthy are chastised and sent away. The fourth day he is presented to the king and the queen, and is initiated into the secret knowledge of a strange temple, and shown a play in 7 acts depicting symbolically the history of the relationship between God, his Son, the Christ, and Earth, the bride. And after this, the king and the queen submit themselves to be mysteriously beheaded, and the 5th day he steals a glimpse of the naked Venus, Isis unveiled, which act subsequently causes him to be sent back to the world, no doubt as a teacher, instead of remaining in bliss in the eternal company of the mysterious order and the resurrected king and queen. There is a mock burial of the king and the queen, their real bodies having been secretly sent to a strange tower in the night, followed by them all journeying to the tower. The 6th day, they all take part in the alchemical process of transmuting the dead bodies of the king and the queen into new life in the strange tower of 7 stories. On the 7th and last day, they return with the resurrected king and queen to the original castle, and are invested with the knighthood of the Order of the Golden Stone. And in view of his having seen Isis unveiled, Christian Rosenkreutz is returned to the outer world. The 7-fold alchemical process in the tower is of great interest, for this tower may be aligned with the tower and the tarot trump. And in the ground floor of the tower, they are set to work extracting essences from plants and gems to be used in the subsequent regenerating process. And on the 2nd level, the bodies are distilled in a retort, and the liquor obtained run off into a golden globe. And on the 3rd level, the globe is heated by means of sunlight reflected in many mirrors. And when the globe is finally cut open by means of a diamond, a large white egg is revealed. And on the 4th level, the egg is incubated in a square sand bath, and a bird hatched out, which is at first black and wild, but which, on being fed on some of the liquor distilled from the bodies, becomes tame, its feathers turning to white. And on the 5th level, the bird is put in a water bath of a milk-like liquid, and all of its feathers are boiled off, revealing the bird naked and shining, which process turns the bath blue. And the bath itself is heated strongly and ground to a blue powder, which is used to paint the bird, and all but its head. And on the 6th level, the bird is placed in a strange altar, which was in the temple on the 4th day of the adventure, and there pecks and drinks the blood of a white serpent in a skull. And the serpent is revived, and the bird then becomes a willing sacrifice, suffering its head to be chopped off, and there is no blood until the breast of the bird is opened, which blood is then caught in a receptacle, and the body is then burned to ashes and saved. And on the 7th level, only certain of the pilgrims are allowed, and the others being told that the 6th level is the highest, and being put to making gold from some of the bird's ashes. And the 4 are allowed on the 7th level, and are put to mixing the ashes with water and molding a little man and a woman, which are then eaten and become a most beauteous aspect. And these beautiful homunculi are then fed with the blood of the bird, which after all was made from the original bodies, and grow to life size. Then trumpets are placed in the mouths, and fire enters through a hole in the roof, insouling them, and now regenerated and resurrected, we find the king and the queen. Okay? That is the mysterious allegory of the alchemical tower. Now, this is really, as I said, although Andre has put some of these things out of order, so we can't quite know which alchemical system that he's using here. It doesn't look like Ripley, but it is basically it's the alchemical process. Now, I'd like to mention that the alchemy and Kabbalah don't link up very well. I know that's sad, and as the deeper we get into the study of modern Hermetic, modern Hermetic practice and modern Hermetic theory, we find out that alchemical procedures don't really match up that well with Kabbalah, and there. But it's. I wondered and I worried about this, and we've all, and those of us who study this, we worry about this, and fret about it, and try various ways to make them fit. But one of the secrets to making the Kabbalah and alchemy work together and work in harmony is found in the path and in realizing that the spheres of the Kabbalistic tree of life are, although they are connected and influenced by the paths, they are not the paths. The spheres are the spheres, and the paths are the paths. And once you grasp this, and you realize we are dealing with two different concepts, although they're interrelated, then a lot of problems of relating alchemy directly to Kabbalah will tend to go away, because you realize, for instance, we're looking here at Hod, which is definitely Mercury, and then looking over at Netzach, which is definitely natural. It's Venus. I mean, it's attributed to planet Venus, and it should be. And Hod is attributed to Mercury, and it should be. But in between we have Mars. Now, what's Mars doing in between Mercury and Venus? It is a principle. The paths are active, the spheres are passive in this sense, and the spheres are the concept and the essence, and the paths are the activity. The paths are attributed to the letters of the alphabet. The letters of the alphabet are attributed to the planets and the elements and the signs of the astrology. And so this is where you're going to find alchemy in a way that you can relate to it. The alchemical processes in the paths. Now, this is a very important point, and the reason, I can't emphasize how important this is, because alchemy is a vital aspect of the Hermetic tradition. Both, and now I'm not going to say that like I used to years ago. I just, I was steeped in Carl Jung's interpretation of alchemy, which I still believe is correct as far as he went. But alchemy is also a laboratory process, and we know that too. And a lot of times, people that get too much involved in psychological alchemy, they forget that this really is a genuine laboratory process also. But as Fulcanelli, the great alchemist, said, the great power of the alchemist is in his own desire. This is why alchemy is an art and not a science. It's because the desire of the alchemist is just as great a secret as the philosopher's stone. The desire of the alchemist, in fact, is the key to, really, in a sense, to the Emerald Tablet. So it's important to realize that alchemy relates to the paths, and if you want to get operative about it, rather than the spheres. Now, with that said, the Eastern psychic center system, at least the Woodruff version that most of us are familiar with, the East, is almost upside down from the Western chakra system that we use. And by the way, that Western chakra system that we use has been used by German lodges for at least 300 years, and they're not talking about it. But it's absolutely genuine, and it absolutely works. That's the extrapolation of the middle pillar. In fact, it's quite probable that Rigardi got his main middle pillar from a German work. But regardless of that, that's a sphere-oriented system, and it doesn't go along the spine. It goes right straight down the middle, and it's astral, not etheric like the Eastern system. The Eastern system is almost a reverse, but the Eastern system is alchemical. It is alchemical and it is etheric, and the Western system is esoteric and astral, and uses cosmic power coming down, which the Eastern system doesn't use. It draws whatever cosmic power it does from pranayama and then brings it up for the earth. These two systems are not in conflict. They're not. These two systems work together. They do. And we in the West have an advantage because we can, frankly, we have the advantage because we can draw down celestial power directly through 4 dimensions. And I think that our system, of course, for that reason, is best for us, but at the same time, it works just as well with the other system, in fact, in harmony. And you don't have to worry about, good gosh, I've got, don't I have Mercury and the moon in my head, and why are you putting them down in your belly and the sex organs or whatever? And but then if you do the Eastern system, you got Mars in the sex organs. How do you really want that? Yeah, there's a little Mars in the sex organs, sure. Etherically, yeah. And women have testosterone too, So don't. What I'm trying to point out here is that alchemy, symbolically and even practically, alchemy relates to the paths, and Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic concepts, primarily centered in the spheres. That's the answer to the riddle. In the sense here, this conflict that we're talking about across the path of Mars between Mercury and Venus. And obviously, this is the Mars path here, down the bottom of the tree, not up there where Mars is, not up around Google or anything like that, right down there. That's the alchemy aspect. And so, if we can grasp that, if you can get your mind around the idea of the difference between the paths and the relation, the difference between the paths and the spheres, practical Kabbalah will work a lot better for you. Now, right along that line, next week we are going to be really, really, really privileged to have one of the great masters of esoteric science and esoteric philosophy on our show, talking about his latest book, the seventh in a series on a blending of the Eastern and the Western traditions, in which he has integrated. And this is Dr. Ralph Metzner. And this man is a giant, and he has 7 books on dealing with alchemy and dealing with magic and alchemy and Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, and integrating all of these aspects in a wonderful philosophical and spiritual way that I'm sure you're all going to enjoy, and we're really pleased to have him come on board. So next week, be sure and tune in and tell your friends, because as I say, Dr. Ralph Metzner is someone that you don't want to miss, and this will really be a good show. So until next week, like I say, tune in and next week, and we'll listen to the master himself. And until then, happy magic and good magic, and we'll see you then. Bye.